Math 2, Unit 8, Worksheet 3. Alright, 1 through 4, use exponents to fill in the blanks. As we did last section, we know that when we're multiplying the same base, we add exponents. So 3 plus what is going to be 7, so we know that we're looking for 4. 3 plus 4 equals 7. Over here, 4 plus what equals 12? Well, that's 8. And over here, 2 plus what equals 11, which is 9. This one's a little trickier. So we have what plus 4 equals 1. Well, that's got to be negative 3. Negative 3 plus 4 is 1. Over here, 12 plus what equals 5? Well, that's got to be negative 7. 12 plus negative 7 is 5. And over here, we have what do we have? We have negative 6, right? Negative 6 plus 8 is 2. Alright? Alright, before we can solve for x here, we need to put both of these into fractional exponents. So that becomes 15 to the 3/4 times 15 to the 6/4. And when we add these two together, we end up with 15 to the 9/4. So x equals 9. Over here we have 25 to the 2/3 times 25 to the 4/3, which becomes 25 to the 6/3, which is 25 squared. So x equals 2. Alright, number 9 looks complicated, but if you take it one step at a time, it's pretty easy. We have 7 to the 4/3 divided by 7 to the 6/9, which we need to have a common denominator, so we'll change this guy to 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 3 is 12. When you're dividing fractions, or excuse me, when you're dividing the same base, you subtract exponents. So this becomes 7 to the 12/9 minus 6/9, which means 7 to the 6/9, which reduces to 7 to the 2/3. So we were looking for x, so x equals 2. We have to make sure we have the same denominator here. We do, so x equals 2. Alright, we have 5 to the 4/3 divided by 5 to the 2/6. Again, we don't have a common denominator, so we can't subtract these, so we'll multiply bottom by 2 and get 6, multiply top by 2 and get 8. And now we can say that 5 to the 8/6 divided by 5 to the 2/6 is 5 to the 8/6 minus 2/6, which gives us 5 to the 6/6, or 5 to the first power, x. So we have 5 to the x equals 5 to the first. When bases are the same, you can cancel bases and set the exponents equal to each other. So x equals 1. Number 11, simplify each expression. Write the final answer using only positive exponents. So 2x to the negative 1/3, or excuse me, 2x to the negative 3 becomes 1 over 2x to the 3rd, which means 1 over 2 to the 3rd, x to the 3rd. Since this is easy to multiply, I would go 2 times 2 times 2, or 1 over 8x to the 3rd. Alright, now this negative exponent only belongs with that x, so this becomes 2 over x to the 3rd. We can't simplify that anymore. Alright, we have 3m raised to the 4th, so you have to remember that this is 3m to the 4th, or excuse me, 3 to the 4th, m to the 4th over 6 squared m to the 2nd. Okay, so what do we got here? On top, we've got basically 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, and on below we have 6 times 6, which is really 2 times 3 times 2 times 3. So you can see we can cancel a couple of 3's there. Alright. So as far as our coefficients go, we end up with 9 over 4. And we've got 4 m's on top, 2 on the bottom. 4 minus 2 is 2, so we end up with either 9/4 m squared, or it could be written as 9m squared divided by 4. All right, best way to complete these is basically separate them into, oops, I should have had that -2 in there with the x, but separate them into 3 problems. I think of this as 6 divided by -2 times x to the first divided by x to the -2, and finally y to the -1 divided by y to the -1. If you think of it that way, even with negative exponent, it makes it a lot easier. So 6 divided by -3, I'm sorry, 6 divided by -2 is -3. 1 minus -2 is x to the third. 1 minus -2, +3. Y to the first, or -1 minus -1 is -1 plus 1, or 0, y to the 0. So our final answer is just -3x to the third. Okay, again, think of this as 3 problems. We have 21 divided by 3, and let's do it this way. M to the 5/4 divided by m to the 1/4. 21 divided by 3 is 7. 5/4 minus 1/4 is 4/4, which is 1, so we have m to the first. All right, negative exponent says reciprocal, so the easiest way to simplify this one is get the reciprocal of this fraction, which means 2y to the 5th over 3x to the 4th, and make it positive. So I just got the reciprocal of this fraction and made my exponent positive. So this means we have 2 to the third, which is 2 times 2 times 2, or 8. Y to the 5 times 3, which is 15. 3 to the third, which is 3 times 3 times 3, or 27. And x to the 4th raised to the third, 4 times 3 is 12. All right, moving on to number 17. So we have 3 over 21 times x to the -5 divided by x to the -8 times y to the -2 divided by y to the -9. Okay, we can't divide this, but we can reduce it to 1/7. We have -5 minus -8. I'm going to write that one out. Remember to add the opposite, and we have -5 plus 8, which is, I better write this over here. We have 1/7 x to the third, because -5 plus 8 is 3. And then we have y to the -2 minus -9. Again, we have to add the opposite, and we get -2 plus 9, which is y to the 7th. So we can leave it as 1/7 x to the third, y to the 7th, or we could write it as x to the third, y to the 7th is the numerator, and divided by 7. All right, so that -8 is just going to stay on top. Can't do anything there. We have y to the -9 minus -2, and we have x to the third divided by x squared, or 3 minus 2, which gives us -8. -9 plus 2 is -7, so w to the -7. X to the 3 minus 2 is x to the first. All right, so this would be our answer, but we can't have any negative exponents, so this is -8x. Y to the -7 goes to the bottom and becomes positive. Number 20. All right, so we have 3/4 is just going to stay right there. 3/4. We have n to the second divided by n to the third, which is just n to the 2 minus 3. And we have 5 to the 0, which is just 1. 3 times 1 is 3. And 2 minus 3 is negative 1. So we end up with 3 to the n to the negative 1, or 3 divided by n. All right, remember you can always think of this as we got 2 n's on top and 3 n's on the bottom. If I cancel the 2 off the top and I cancel 2 off the bottom, we'll still have 1 on the bottom. All right, negative exponent tells me to flip this. So I have m squared over 2m to the fourth raised to the fourth power. Now, you could simplify this on the inside first, or you could raise power to a power. I think it's simpler just to stay with the same way you've been doing them all. So I have 2 times 4 is 8. I have m to the 8th on top over 2 to the 4th, which is 16. And 4 times 4 is m to the 16th. And now again, we could think of this as we have 8 m's on top and we have 16 m's on the bottom. If I cancel all 8 off the top, cancel 8 off the bottom, will leave me with 8 still. So everything's canceled off the top, so we have to have a 1 up there. So it is 1 over 16m to the 8th. If you want to do subtraction method, 8 minus 16 is negative 8, which means m to the negative 8, which means m goes on the bottom. All right, so raising a power to a power, 9 to the first raised to the third is 9 to the third. 2/3 times 3, you multiply numerators. 2 times 3 is 6. Divided by 3 is 2, so we have t squared. 4 to the first raised to the third is 4 to the third. T to the first raised to the third is t to the third. We don't need to multiply these out, but we have 2 t's on top, 3 t's on the bottom. If we were to simplify, this would become 9 to the third over 4 to the third. Cancel 2 off the top, 2 off the bottom, leaving just 1. Or you could think of this as 9/3 over 4 to the third, and then t to the 2 minus 3, which still gives you 9/3 over 4/3 t to the negative 1, which means it has to go to the bottom and become positive. All right, number 23. Let's see what we got. We have to raise a power to a power, so 3 to the first raised to the third is 3 to the third. 1/2 times 3. 3 times 1 is 3 over 2, so this is m to the 3/2. 9 to the 1/2, well, 9 to the 1/2 is actually the square root of 9, or 3. And we have m to the 1/2. Well, we got 3 3's on top and 1 on the bottom. I'm going to cancel 1 on the bottom, leaving me only 2 on top, which is 3 squared, or 9. 3/2 minus 1/2 is 2/2, which is m to the first. All right, so first we have to raise a power to a power. So we have 6 squared, which is 36. 1/3 raised to the second is 2/3. So we have 36 to the 2/3 times 2x to the 5/3 divided by 8 to the 1/3 x to the 1/3. All right, so 36 times 2 is 72. 2/3 plus 5/3 is 7/3. So x to the, forgot the x there, x to the 7/3. All right, so 8 to the 1/3 is the cubed root of 8. 2 times 2 times 2, so this is actually 2. And what else we got down here? X to the 1/3. All right, so simplifying this, 72 divided by 2 is 36. X to the 7/3 minus 1/3 is 7 minus 1 is 6, so we have x to the 6/3. 6 divided by 3 is 2, so we have 36 x squared. There's your answer. Okay, over here we have 7 to the 5/2 divided by 7 to the 1/2. Excuse me, 1/2. Sorry about that. 1/2. That means we have 7 to the 5/2 minus 1/2, which is 7 to the 4/2, which is 7 squared, which is 49. All right, 3 more. So number 26 is 8 to the 7/3 divided by 8 to the 4/6. When we're dividing the same base, we subtract exponents. If we're going to subtract, we have to have the same denominator. So 3 times 2 is 6. 7 times 2 is 14. And now we have 8 to the 14/6 minus 4/6. 14 minus 4 is 10/6, which means 8 to the 5/3. All right, we can actually simplify this. Run out of room here, so we have basically 8 to the 5th. So the third root of 8 to the 5th. 8 to the 5th is 8 times 8 times 8 times 8 times 8. Well, we need 3 to get 1 out because it's third root, so we know we're getting an 8 out. So I'm going to put him out there. Now, you remember 8 is 2 times 2 times 2, so a 2 is getting out, 2 more are getting killed. We got 1 more 8 to deal with, 2 times 2 times 2, a 2 gets out, 2 gets killed. So we end up with 8 times 2 is 16 times 2 is 32. All right. Number 27. We have 6 to the 2/8, which reduces to, well, let's just leave it at 2/8 for now. 2/8 divided by 6 to the 1/4. So when dividing the same base, subtract exponents. So let's change this guy to an 8, so that's 2/8. So now we have 6 to the 2/8 minus 2/8, which is 6 to the 0 power. Anything to the 0 power equals 1. All right, 7 to the 5/6 times 7 to the 2/3, which means 7 to the 5/6 times 7 to the 4/6 when we have a common denominator, which gives us 7 to the 9/6. When we reduce, that is 7 to the 3/2, which is the square root of 7 to the 3rd. 7 to the 3rd is 7 times 7 times 7. 1 gets out, 1 gets killed, 1 stuck in, so we end up with 7, or 7 times the square root of 7.